My name is Oriana Shamha, and I'm originally from Lebanon, but I'm currently living in Northern Virginia. And here's my presentation about love in Arab philosophy. This is my question. Why was the topic of love and passion extremely common amongst Arab philosophers? So before I start, I would like to promise that I'm not an expert, but I promise that I tried to learn as much as I could to satisfy my curiosity about this topic. Someone here might know more than me about this topic. Please correct me and ask questions and contribute, but do it nicely. I am not trying to persuade you of my agenda or convince you to take action. My only hope is that my presentation might cultivate your own curiosity. Okay, so this is my outline. First, I'm going to start talking about the background on philosophy at the time, and then I'm going to zoom in into the topic of love. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about Arab philosophy and its effect on Western culture. So, what led me to this? Over the summer, I read The Prophet, which I'll talk about later on, but it got me thinking, was love the was love the main topic that the author Khalil Gibran was talking about? So let's talk about the pioneer. Abu Bakr Muhammad ibn Zakaria Razi was a philosopher, and he released the first essay talking about love. And it was one of the first pieces of literature that discussed the idea of love. And later on, after doing a lot of research, he would go on to release a book filled with all of his essays about love. So, love was very prominent in the ideas of society, self, and the cosmos. So, people would believe that if you should love yourself so that you can love others and to take care of others. Um, and it was talked a lot about in the Quran. And philosophers used love as a way to explain social conflicts and events because the idea is very fascinating and people just love talking about love. So it's easy to share wisdom to others through that lens. So The Prophet by Khalil Gibran is the book that got me started in all of this. But Khalil Gibran was an Arab philosopher who moved from Ottoman Syria when he was really young, when he was 8 years old, to Boston in the US. And the book, The Prophet, which he published in 1923, discusses several topics. However, the topic of love was the underlining message that I noticed throughout the whole book. For example, when he talk about love, he talk about when he talk about laws, he relate it to love. When he talk about friendships, he would also relate that to love, and so on. So here's my favorite quote from him. He said, "Half of what I say is meaningless, but I say it just to reach you." If this quote sounds familiar, John Lennon said it in one of his lyrics, which brings me to my final topic, the Western effect. The Beatles were extremely influenced by his work, especially one of his books called Santa and Foam, which is where that previous quote was from. They integrated it into a lot of their music, and you can tell that it was really influential because he sold over 9 million copies in English only, which is absolutely incredible. And that makes him the third best selling poet in the world. So, in conclusion, my big idea is that I found that love was very prominent in Arab philosophy because it was part of the Quran and um, because it was a very appealing topic. It made giving people wisdom easy because they seemed very fascinated about love, so they could talk about how people should act through the lenses of love. And Arab philosophy is not just exclusive to the Arab world. It also spread to the Western side with the help of Khalil Gibran's record-breaking sales. And lastly, here are my references and further readings. I'd highly recommend that you check out The Prophet and Son of the Foam. Son and Foam. The Prophet is free to read on Google, so I highly recommend checking them out. And thank you so much for your time.